Hey there! Today we're going to talk about converters. I'm not going to tell you about various types of converters or anything. A converter is pretty much a converter, but there are two basic types. Converters you can disassemble and converters you cannot, or cannot disassemble or can disassemble very difficultly. And this is one from China, and I love these things. You can get them from eBay, and they cost you about $5 for 10 of these, and they fit in 90% of the pens I try to put them in. And the best part is you can just grab them like this, and then you can open them up. You just put some silicone grease right there and around that seal, and then everything is smooth. And so what I want to talk about today is converters that for some reason stop running smoothly. They don't operate smoothly anymore. That can happen. I mean, I suppose they are somewhat lubricated in the factory, and then with extended use they may lose that lubrication because you clean them often, and then they start to run a little bit less smoothly. This is a Waterman converter. I cannot disassemble this. I think there are some people who do that, but I think you have to heat this up because it's sort of glued in place. I don't want to do that because I'm pretty sure if I heat things up, things are going to melt. That's the way I work. This is a converter that came in my Twisby micarta. I'm not sure. Yeah, you can pull this off, and that happens with a lot of converters. But my problem with this, I think these are the converters made by Schmidt. I've seen these in a couple of pens, and you can pull off this metal ring, and then you can pull out this bit, but it requires quite some force. And the problem is, I've had that happen with a couple of converters now. You somehow pop a seal there, and then when you put ink back into the converter and you hold it up like this, the ink just runs out. It's no longer airtight right up there. And that's a real pity, because then you can pretty much throw out the converter. So this is one from a Nemo Sign Singularity pen, and the same thing. You can unscrew this metal ring, but again you see this sort of similar construction with the black plastic and the clear plastic. I don't want to ruin any seals. So what to do if you cannot disassemble your pen? Well, your converter. Well, there's two basic things. First of all, you will need some type of silicone grease, and I guess this is what most of us use. It's a nice clear silicone grease type, but how do you get that in there, right? Clearly you don't want to just jam your converter in, because that's not a good idea. There are other things you can do, and one of the methods I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you two things. The first is a method in which you just use a toothpick. So what you do is I would say, make sure the piston is all the way to the back there. Take out your silicone grease. You take a bit of the stuff. This is running a little low, so it's getting a bit difficult. You take some of the stuff, and I always like to, I'm not sure how well you can see that, but I'd like to sort of mold it a bit, so that it's really nice and elongated. There are no bits sticking out, because this is going to go into the sort of over the nipple of the pen, and I don't want to get silicone grease in the feed of the pen, because that's going to hamper ink flow. So very carefully, I'm just going to put that in there, and I'm going to try and hit the walls of the converter. And that is actually working out, believe it or not. I'm not sure if you can see that. Let's see if I can zoom in a bit here. You see that right there? There's actually some goo. Well, that's the grease I've just put on the inside of the converter. Alright. Now I'm just going to operate the converter, and I can feel right now it's very smooth, because the seal has just pushed back the grease and is now pulling it back in there. So I'm lubricating the inside of the walls of the ink reservoir, and that seems to work. But I'm not a huge fan of this method, because although it works, sometimes it's a little hard to move the toothpick in such a way that you actually hit the insides of the ink reservoir. And as I said, I don't really want to get ink right inside that nipple, because that's going to slide over a feed. Feeds and silicone grease don't match. So you can take the other side of the toothpick and just sort of make sure there's nothing on the inside of the nipple there. But as I said, it works. This is super smooth now, but I'm not a huge fan. So what else could you do? Well, I came up with another method, which is a bit more involved because it needs a more liquid silicone grease. And that's what you get here. I think a lot of people will recognize this. This is what you get with a Twisby fountain pen. You get this little bottle, jar, whatever you like to call that. I'm not sure what this says, these Asian characters, but it does say silicone grease. And this stuff, as you can see, is more liquid. This stuff will not move around. That's just sort of a paste or a weird goo. This is a bit more liquid. So I'm going to try and draw that up into a syringe. I've got a 5 milliliter syringe here, nothing fancy, and I've got some tubing. Now, people are going to ask me, I know they will, where I got this tubing. And the tubing happens to be just the right diameter to fit into the syringe. I'm not sure whether you can see that. You probably can if I zoom in a bit. Not that it's so important, but I have cut this tubing at a slanted angle. You see that? And that's very important because that makes it easy to slide it in here. And the other side I've not cut off, and that's a bit more difficult to just force into the syringe. Now this tubing, I got this from my grandmother. She bought a pair of rubber boots and they were tied together with this stuff, and it's just the right size. It fits in converters and it fits in this syringe. If you're looking for this, I happen to have a set of calipers here. You would need something that is looks like it's 2 millimeters in diameter, outside diameter, and as you can see here, that's about 5/64 of an inch, and that's all I can do. I don't know where to get that. Maybe some DIY shop, maybe some Radio Shack type of thing. I just don't know. Alright, so please don't ask me where I got this. I've just told you it's a boot strap, I guess, literally. Now we got this stuff, and we have to get out. There's this sort of annoying little nipple which we don't really need because I'm assuming this will not. No, that won't fit in. So you just take a pair of pliers of some kind, take that out, and you are going to put the little tubing in there. Try and do this in such a way that you can actually see what I'm doing. Just expelling the air from the syringe, and I'm going to draw up some of this stuff. That's going to be difficult because it's really thick and viscous, but it does work. I'm also going to take a tissue to clean the inside of the nipple of the converter. Which one of these is the worst? This one is okay, actually. This one is really sort of not really smooth. Alright, I'm going to pull this back all the way, and I'm just going to wipe the outside of that tube because some of that grease obviously got on there. Now this is going to be the delicate part of the operation. You insert the little tube into the converter, and you really don't want to squirt this thing full of goo. Just a little bit will do. See that? I don't know what. Maybe I should zoom in just a bit more. I hope you can see that. I have just got in about a drop of this stuff, and I'm going to repeat that on the other side. So I've just turned around the converter, and now very gently another drop of that stuff. I'm going to retract the tube in one smooth motion, and I'm going to zoom out a bit so that you can actually see what I'm doing. I tap that gently to make it move back a bit. Doesn't really work. And now I'm just pulling this back and forth, and right now this is really smooth. Now of course a pretty tight seal, that's what made it not so smooth in the first place. It's just going to push the liquid forward, but you're also drawing it backward just by creating a sort of a vacuum, I suppose. Maybe you can even help that by putting a thumb there and really making it draw a vacuum. But it is working even by pushing it back and forth, there's none of that goo behind the piston seal. But even so, this feels smoother than it used to be. Okay, now I'm just going to roll up that tissue, just put it in there, and I pull it out, just to make sure there is no silicone grease right there in that nipple. I just wipe off the outside, the exterior of the converter. And while we're at it, we may as well do the same thing with that micarta converter. Let me just, whoops, sorry for putting that in your face. Okay, now let's just put this in here. There we go. And it's out. And I'm going to, whatever was in there, I'm going to squeeze that out. Just to, because I don't need all that stuff in the syringe. There we go. Alright. This has had some time to get in there a bit. And there we go. Nice and smooth. And again, rolling that up a bit, getting out some of the excess grease. Runs nicely and smoothly. I'm pretty happy. And this is, here are just two ways in which you can get some grease into your converter. So, I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.